When war erupted across the lands of ancient Greece, the sounds of swords clashing against shields, the deafening cries of soldiers could be heard, but there was also a whispering of a name, the god who spread bloodshed and chaos across the world, Ares, the god of war. He was the son of Zeus and Hera, born from the throne and supreme power, but strangely, Ares was not loved like his siblings. On Mount Olympus, where the gods sat in their glory, Ares was shunned, despised, with eyes as red as blood, armor that never cooled, and footsteps heavy like a curse from the underworld. Wherever Ares appeared, the air thickened with death. Unlike Athena, the goddess of strategy and reason, Ares embodied instinct, brutality, and war without rules. He fought not for righteousness, not for justice, but for the burning thirst for blood and flesh in his chest. But behind this bloodthirsty image, was there a lonely soul, always rejected by Olympus? Was Ares the victim of a fate from which he could not escape? Let us step into the story filled with blood, fire, and tragedy of the most forgotten god of war in Greek mythology. The birth of Ares, the child of war Ares, the god of war in Greek mythology, was unlike any other god. On Mount Olympus, from the moment he was born, his fate was covered by darkness, rage, and an unnameable thirst for violence. Ares was the son of Zeus, the supreme god, and Hera, the goddess of marriage and family. But the relationship between Zeus and Hera was never peaceful. Hera was always hurt by her husband's infidelities, and in a moment of rage, she decided to create a child to take revenge. One myth tells that Hera gave birth to Ares without the involvement of Zeus. Through her own will and deep hatred, from infancy, Ares was different. His eyes were as red as burning coals, his hands clenched as if holding an invisible sword. While other children played in the light, Ares was drawn to the screams, the sound of metal from Hephaestus's forge, and tales of battles fought on earth. No one taught Ares how to fight. He was born knowing each blow, each step Ares took was filled with the raw power and pure instinct of war, yet to be tempered. It was not a war for ideals, but war for itself, pure chaos. And so, Ares grew up in the suspicion of Olympus. Zeus, even as his father, never showed him affection. "You are the most troublesome child," Zeus once exclaimed, when he saw Ares spreading violence in the mortal world. The other gods also avoided him. To them, Ares was the embodiment of danger, an uncontrollable rage. However, the scariest thing was not his power, it was his loneliness. The older Ares became, the deeper he sank into inner darkness, a place where he could find no one to love, to understand, or to guide him. He was not taught how to love, only how to destroy. And so, the god of war entered the human world, bringing with him an insatiable thirst for blood, not to conquer, but to find a sense of existence. Through screams, through spilled blood, and through destruction, Ares, the unloved god in Greek mythology, the gods often embodied noble qualities: wisdom like Athena, art like Apollo, love like Aphrodite. But Ares was different. He was not born to be associated with beauty, ideals, or glory. Ares was the most brutal and naked embodiment of war, unmasked, unvarnished, and unapologetic. And yet, it was precisely because of this that he was shunned. On Mount Olympus, Ares was not welcomed like his siblings. Zeus, his father, never hid his disappointment. In a fit of rage, Zeus once scolded Ares before all the gods. "You are the most annoying and despicable of my children. The war you bring is filthy, foolish, and meaningless. No words could be more cruel for a child, from the Supreme Father himself. Meanwhile, Athena, also a god of war, was revered and praised. But Athena represented the bright side of war, strategy, cunning, justice, and courage. She entered battle as a bearer of righteousness. As for Ares, he charged in like a wild beast. The screams, the clashing steel, the flow of blood was the music he heard. For him, war needed no reason, simply because it was the truest nature of mankind, and his truest nature as well. This favoritism made Ares even more isolated, while Athena was worshipped, with temples built in every major city like Athens. Ares only had a few small temples, scattered in barren, hostile places where humans did not pray for victory, but only for survival. The prayers sent to Ares were often filled with fear, not reverence. The people of Greece called upon him when they feared annihilation. No one wanted to be close to a god who only appeared when death was near. Ares did not bring hope, he brought the ultimate suffering. The more he was shunned, the deeper Ares sank into rage. In battle, he not only killed his enemies, but also crushed hope and compassion. He appeared like a storm. No distinction between friend or foe. No mercy. When war became the only language he knew, love became something distant, even meaningless. Sometimes, one wonders, is Ares truly evil? Or is he merely a reflection of the darkest aspects of human nature? The world of mortals always worshipped the heroic warriors, but trembled when they became too much like Ares, indifferent, ruthless, cold-blooded. While Olympus praised victory, it rejected the one who made that victory possible. In his loneliness, Ares became even more terrifying, not because his power grew, but because no one could hold him back anymore. No one was close enough to pull him from the abyss that Olympus had pushed him into, and it was in that void that Ares began to seek the forbidden, paths that were closed, emotions he was never taught how to touch, especially love. Love for Ares was not easy. How could one who was used to bloodshed understand tenderness? But he longed for it. Like a lost soul on the battlefield, he craved an embrace, even if it was only in a dream. And then, love arrived, in the form of the most beautiful goddess of Olympus, yet also the most dangerous, Aphrodite. Eras and Aphrodite, the love of fire and roses. In the world of intrigue and jealousy among the gods on Mount Olympus, nothing surprised them more than the love between Ares, the brutal god of war, and Aphrodite, the most beautiful, alluring goddess in the universe. Ares, who was always covered in iron armor and blood, was defeated by a single glance, a smile from the goddess of love, and Aphrodite, the symbol of softness and allure, was drawn to the raw power, the fierce instincts of the god who had been rejected by Olympus. Their love was a mesmerizing, yet contrasting union. The fire of war mixed with the scent of roses, creating a passion so intense it became dangerous. At the time, Aphrodite was married to Hephaestus, the god of the forge, wise but ugly and crippled. This marriage was arranged by Zeus, with no love involved. In the shadow of a cold relationship, Aphrodite sought Ares as a way to find herself, vibrant, passionate, and full of desire. At first, their love was a secret. Clandestine meetings under the moon, stolen glances in the midst of battles, and escapes from Olympus to a world where only the two of them existed. But even gods could not hide a heart that burned so brightly. Rumors spread, and then Hephaestus's jealousy turned love into a deep wound among the gods. In a clever plan, Hephaestus created a nearly invisible but unbreakable golden net. One night, while Ares and Aphrodite slept beside each other, the net was dropped, trapping the lovers and exposing them to all the gods on Mount Olympus. The gods gathered, laughing, mocking Ares and Aphrodite. The scene not only humiliated Ares, but also tore apart the heart that had been lonely for so long. For the first time, he loved, and for the first time, he was deeply wounded. But amidst the mocking laughter, no one noticed the look Ares gave. Aphrodite, no longer full of desire or passion, but of protection. He did not erupt in anger as he usually would. Instead, he silently vowed that, even if Olympus turned away, he would never betray that love. After being freed, Ares and Aphrodite no longer hid their relationship. They made it public, despite opposition. From their union, they had many children, the most notable being Eros, Cupid, the god of love. Ironically, from a forbidden love came a child who would become the symbol of eternal love in the mortal world. The love with Aphrodite was a rare moment when Ares was no longer the god of war, but a soul being warmed. But like all things related, to him, that love could not last. Aphrodite was the goddess of beauty, but also the goddess of desire. Her heart belonged to no one, and Ares, though powerful, could not keep her forever. In the end, Ares remained alone, but in his memory, that love, though brief and bitter, was the only light that flickered in the darkness of endless war. The failures of Ares. The warrior god falls before fate. People often think that a war god is invincible, but Ares, born from rage and raised amidst fire and blood, has faced his share of defeats. And it is these failures, not his victories, that paint the true picture of this god. One of Ares' earliest and most painful failures occurred during the battle with Athena, the goddess of strategy and wisdom. In the war for Troy, both gods stood on opposing sides. Ares defended the Trojan army, while Athena aided the Greeks. In a clash between the two divine forces, Ares, impulsive and fiery, charged into battle with overwhelming brute strength. But Athena, calm and wise, used strategy to defeat him. She needed no strength, just a rock. And so Ares fell, his divine blood spilling like a river of red. The sight caused the other gods to laugh. A war god defeated by wisdom. Ares' pain was not only physical, but also deeply rooted in his wounded pride. He did not lose due to weakness, but because no one had ever taught him that strength cannot always triumph over intellect. On another occasion, Ares was captured by the giants Otus and Ephialtes. They did not need magic or supernatural weapons, just tricks and sheer strength, trapping Ares in a massive bronze jar for 13 months. No god knew, no one searched for him. Ares, the god of war who instilled fear, became invisible at the top of Mount Olympus. When Hermes discovered and freed him, Ares said nothing. But from that moment, he learned a bitter lesson. Power means nothing if no one calls upon you. That failure was not just a fall, but a painful reminder of isolation. During the war for Troy, Ares faced defeat once again. When he sided with the Trojans, Zeus, his father, ordered that no god intervene directly. Despite the command, Ares entered the battle. This time, he did not fall to another god, but to a mortal. Diomedes, a warrior granted strength by Athena, hurled a spear at Ares. The war god screamed like thunder, blood gushing to the sky, and for the first time, a mortal forced a god to retreat. It was a moment when Olympus understood war no longer belonged to the gods. It had become the domain of humankind. And Ares, despite being a great symbol, began to fade into obscurity. These failures accumulated into bitterness, but they also made Ares more real. No longer just a god of slaughter, he became a symbol of the darker side of war, where honor is drowned, where strength is not always the ultimate weapon, and where even the strongest can be the loneliest. Ares, the forgotten one on the glorious peak of Olympus, where the eternal fires never fade. The names of the gods are sung in thousands of songs passed down through countless generations. But Ares is different. When war faded into the past, people began to forget the god who once ruled the battlefield. Athena, the goddess of strategy and wisdom, still had temples built in her honor, worshipped as a symbol of glorious victory. Apollo continued to be praised for music and light. Even Hermes, the clever god of messages and trade, had a place in the hearts of the people. But Ares, he was seen as a shadow to be forgotten, a stain of an era of slaughter, a symbol of chaos no one wished to speak of anymore. There were no great cities that worshipped him as their protector, no magnificent temples in his name. All that remained were a few cold stone statues, scattered in hidden corners, where warriors once prayed for his strength, only to quickly turn away once peace returned. Ares, the god who once roared on the battlefield, now only echoed faintly in humanity's memory. But perhaps that was his fate. Ares was not a symbol of victory. He was a symbol of primal war, of the ferocity and instincts within humanity. When people learned to use words instead of swords, when victory came through intellect rather than bloodshed, Ares no longer had a place to exist, and so he was pushed into the shadows. Not because he was weak, but because humankind no longer wanted to confront the truth that war has always been a part of their nature. Though forgotten, Ares remained. No temples, no prayers. He existed in the moments when humans became enraged, when hatred rose, when swords were drawn once again. Ares did not die. He only waited, waiting for the day humanity would return to its wild instincts. And then, Ares would emerge from the shadows, with the sound of battle drums and the familiar scent of blood. The legacy of Ares in humanity's mind is the god once shunned by the other gods, once feared and avoided by humans, ultimately left the deepest, most haunting mark in human history. There are no grand temples, no exuberant festivals in his honor, but every time war erupts, every time a person raises a sword in vengeance, every time blood is spilled on the battlefield, Ares' name rings out in the unconscious. He was not revered by the ancient Greeks like Athena, nor did he represent reason or justice, but he was the purest part of human instinct, the place where rage reigns, where desire overwhelms reason, where the thirst for conquest and destruction rises strongest. Ares was not beautiful, not perfect, but he was real. In the world today, Ares still lives, not as a god in armor, but in the hearts of every person when they must choose between forgiveness and revenge, between reason and madness. He exists in every conflict, from the smallest quarrels to the bloody wars between nations, and because of that, the legacy of Ares does not lie in statues, but in the deep awareness that war, though terrifying, is an inseparable part of human history and nature. He may not be loved, but he is always remembered as a warning, as a bloody mirror reflecting the darkness inside each of us. Ares, the god of war, the one forgotten atop Olympus, but never vanishing from the hearts of humankind. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you found the video helpful and interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. Wishing you a wonderful day, and see you in the next video.